Hey, what's up DIYers? Mike Bors with the Mike Bors channel. Thank you for watching. We're working on our Alpha 1 Gen 1 Mercruiser outboard, and in today's video, we're going to show you how to replace the water pocket cover. Let's get started. Coming inside, DIYers, this could very quickly become the nightmare of your project. Take a look at that part that is secured by those 4 bolts, and you can definitely see that there is some serious melting to that part. That is your water pocket unit, and it's got a copper pipe that extends upward in our case. However, when the boat engine is upright and secured to the boat, that pipe is facing down. And what a lot of people run into is snapping those bolts when removing them. And trust me, that becomes a nightmare. So with that said, in the event that your water pocket unit looks good, there's no melting, most people just keep the one that's installed and move forward without replacing it. However, as you can see with our melted and badly damaged part, unfortunately, we cannot move forward without replacing it. So what we recommend is spraying those bolts with PB Blaster, letting it sit overnight, and then carefully begin removing those. However, in our case, we have actually inserted an extension and socket on each of those bolts, and believe it or not, ours loosened in a pretty friendly manner. However, again, it is extremely important to know and take into consideration in the event that your bolts do not move, we highly recommend not forcing them. In other words, do your best to restrain yourself from grabbing a long breaker bar and breaking those bolts as you try to loosen them up. Once you break them free, baby steps. Be very patient, go very slow. Again, too many boat owners are running into snapping these bolts inside the upper unit, and that becomes an unbelievably horrific nightmare. Making progress on the left-hand side, both forward and rear bolts have been loosened. They are no longer flush with the housing. That is so melted, not good. On the right-hand side in the rear, that bolt has been loosened. Unfortunately, the front right bolt is kind of being eaten by that melted housing. So what I need to do is grab a pick tool and carefully pick away at that melted housing that is melted onto that bolt, because unfortunately I cannot get the socket on the bolt. That's the tool I'm using, nothing fancy. It's doing the job though. After about 5 minutes of using that pick tool, I have inserted the socket and extension on the bolt, and it's not seated all the way, but I've come up top and I'm going to carefully with a rubber mallet tap that in place until I got a firm grip on that bolt. Quick update, I removed the socket extension and ratchet, and I grabbed this really long flathead screwdriver. I still was unable to get a good grip on that bolt, and the last thing you want to do is strip it. And if you take a closer look, you may not be able to see it, but even though I have created a groove around the bolt head, I can't actually turn it because each edge or tip of the bolt rubs against that plastic. So I grabbed this long flathead screwdriver and I placed it in the groove I made with that pick tool, and I just carefully just kind of worked that groove away from the bolt head so it's a little bit larger. And I got a good grip of it now. Again, baby steps. Do not rush it. Do not snap that bolt inside that cast iron thread. All 4 bolts are loosened and should be able to just pull up this entire part up and out. And again, DIYers, badly melted. If yours looks like this, replace it, or it will continue to leak water and cause damage to your engine. And back to the inside, coming up from the top, and I'll carefully pull that gasket off, and it will be stuck. Just be patient. There it is. And that's what it looks like inside. We'll go ahead and clean that up before we install the new gasket and new part. So again, DIYers, that is how you remove your water pocket part. And I would say there's not much to it, but there is. Do your absolute best not to break those bolts inside the cast iron upper unit. That would not be good. However, again, if yours looks like that, replace it. We are making progress, and we have installed the upper and lower seals, as you can see here. That is the lower seal. And again, that link that we shared will definitely be helpful as we guide you through the proper way to install these seals. And using the compound, the punch, there's the part number, and you'll learn more about that in that video. However, back to the water pocket cover. This is the OEM Quicksilver, part number 42724 Alpha 3, the cover assembly. Here it all is. Let's go and open it. Here it is out of the packaging, and there's the housing. It's got a little hole here. The bar, the gasket, the bolts, and this little rubber insert, as you can see here, will go inside the housing. And take note of how I do this. The actual nipple or rubber portion that is sticking out, that will go in first, and you've got more space on top of the actual tab or nipple, and that is the top. So pinch this and slide it in, and I may need both hands, maybe not. And as you can see, again, it is a rubber insert, so carefully squeeze it or compress it and continue to shift it in place until it's properly seated and that nipple comes out that hole. Here it is. Again, compressing that rubber insert, just slide it right down and in place. And once you get that nipple in, kind of work it back up and to the sides and back down to properly seat that nipple in that hole. And let's go and open the gasket. With the gasket out, you can see on the other side just some print, and basically it's one long piece, and then they use the machines to cut it. And we are going to have this side up, mating with the bottom portion of the housing there. We are going to have that side down, mating with the portion in there. And no need to use any gasket sealant on this. You'll just carefully insert that and align it properly over the holes. And we strongly recommend vacuuming and cleaning that entire surface that is going to mate. Make sure there are no corrosion or any calcium buildup that will interfere with that seal, and that seal could fail, and you don't want that. What I'll do next is insert this. I'm actually going to Loctite that in place, and let's go grab the old part. Well, DIYers, here we are, old part on the left, new part on the right hand side. And can you tell the difference? Absolutely, a huge difference. Can't even make out that hole on the melted old part at all. Isn't that crazy? Again, if yours looks like this, replace it. Don't move forward in the project having that water pocket cover in that condition. Here's a quick view of the opposite side. Old on the left, new on the right. Big difference. From here, I'm going to remove this bar, and I'm going to properly make sure that this bottom portion of the housing is clean and wiped off. Prior to securing these bolts, I'm going to put anti-seize on the actual thread to make it easier to remove this housing down the road and replace it with a new one. I will open up the anti-seize and apply some anti-seize to each bolt thread. And all I'm going to do, you definitely want a towel accessible. Just work that anti-seize into the thread, as shown here. And as you can see, it gets pretty dirty. So again, have a towel available. And I will continue this process for the remaining 3 bolts. No easy way to do this, unfortunately. I've got all the bolts in the housing. Make sure that the circular indent is facing forward, basically toward where the U-joint bearing assembly goes into. Shift that down in place. And I am then going to secure all of those 4 7/16 bolts with this right here. And just like taking them off, baby steps putting them back in. Do not cross thread these. They should go in extremely easy. If they do not, back them out, realign them, and screw them back in. And because we are seating a gasket, you want to go in a specific sequence. Once I get all these bolts screwed in, I will tighten them by starting right here, hop to this side, 3 turns on that side, hop to this side, 3 turns, 3 turns, 3 turns, 3 turns until it is secured. Do not over tighten any of the bolts. Long extension and ratchet. And again, 3 turns, hop to the back one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, we are properly seating the gasket. Water pocket cover is secured. Again, do not over tighten those bolts. Do it in sequence to properly seat that inner gasket, ultimately creating that watertight seal. What we will do next is install this rod here, but we are going to apply just a little bit of Loctite on this portion and then slide it into the rubber fitting. We will be using Loctite 680 retaining compound by Henkel, and the manufacturer strongly recommends to not use this on plastic. However, in our application, it will be going on copper and sliding into that rubber insert we installed on the plastic housing. I'll only go about a 1/2 inch up, and basically apply it and use my finger to spread it around the bar. And do your best not to get any inside the bar. And as you saw, I did not apply much. And I'm going to shift this into the hole, and you want it as straight as possible. I'll tap it down with a hammer ever so gently. Here's the finished product. And again, the copper pipe is as straight up and centered in that housing or rubber insert as possible. And that Loctite is going to keep this copper bar in place the remainder life of that part, both the rubber insert and the pipe. And that will actually connect to this upper portion here that comes out of your water pump or impeller. And real quick, as you hammer that in place, be very careful and gentle. You do not want to offset that rubber nipple that shifts into that little hole in the housing. And DIYers, that is it. That is how you install a water pocket cover. From here, do us a favor, below the video, you will see that thumbs up icon. Click on that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely ring your YouTube bell. That would be very helpful to us. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. And scrolling above is a link to a video. We are now going to disassemble this entire U-joint yoke assembly with the gears and bearings on it and rebuild a new one. So definitely check out that link. Thanks again for watching.